Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk. Thank you for joining the Rams versus Chicago Bears game preview. So I'm dropping this on a Thursday. Gonna have a collaboration with Bears Guy 5 Sports on Saturday, and then of course the game on Monday, so I'm gonna stagger the content out. So thank you everyone for tuning in, for watching, for all the people seeing us for the first time or second time but haven't yet subscribed. Please do so right here. For everyone who has subscribed, all the legacy subscribers, the new ones, the ones in the middle, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of the Rams Talk community and just talking Rams with me. I really do appreciate it. You can also find me on Instagram at LA Rams Talk, on Twitter at Real LA Rams Talk, on TikTok LA Rams Talk, Fan to Fan Sports. You can just type that into Google and go there. A bunch of YouTube creators like myself, and on the Flick app, it's where I where I am during games. It's kind of like a live chat app for the game, and you can see the stats and everything within the app, so it's really cool. So check me out on all those things. Now, let's just get into this, right? So actually, before I do, shout out to a couple Bears people I know. Rick Serio, who I had to eat crap for when the Rams lost in 2018 in that 15-6 game. Rick Serio came into work that day, chest puffed out. So Rick Serio, I want to return the favor. Granted, we don't work together anymore, but I want the Rams to return the favor. I know a lot of Bears fans, so shout out to all you guys. Actually, after that, leading up and after that game in 2018, in the comment section of the video, the preview, the recap, Bears fans were coming in hot and heavy. And usually fans of other teams are pretty cool, respectful, just regular, crap talking. That's fine. But some Bears fans were just going a little beyond. So I'm ready for it. Rams fans in the comments, be ready for it. So here we go. So the Bears own the overall record 54-37, and then 3 ties. So once again, I say this in almost every video, this is an opportunity for the Rams to just notch another win in the all-time rivalry between teams and hopefully climb up to 500 against that team. I mean, they've been playing since the 40s, so this is an old school rivalry before most of us were born. A couple news and notes getting into this. A'Shawn Robinson has been designated to return off the IR. So essentially what that means is after 6 weeks on the 6 weeks on the IR, you can be designated to return, but you still can't play for two more games. So he's I think practicing or starting to practice and get into the flow this week. Since after this game and then there's the Miami game and then a bye, so he would return after the bye against Seattle, a home game against Seattle, same as Jordan Fuller. So that's a pretty appealing situation to have Fuller and A'Shawn back in the mix, or A'Shawn in the mix for the first time ever against Seattle. It'll be interesting to see how he's used in that game. So looking forward to the Seattle game for a million reasons. That's just another one right there. You guys have all heard about Kai Forbath. We have signed Kai Forbath. Now, having lived in LA for pretty much my entire life, I'm very familiar with Kai Forbath. He played at UCLA, played for about 10 teams in the NFL. He's like I think the number one kicking recruit coming out of high school when he went to UCLA. He has 7 career game-winning field goals. Now, when I read all these different things about Kai Forbath, that stood out to me because this guy has done it in the league. Game-winning field goals. And some of these kickers that are not in football right now, they're not terrible, right? So Kai Forbath, if Kai Forbath is going out there to kick a field goal, or an extra point, I feel much more at ease than Sam Sloman. Okay, and Sam Sloman doesn't have a body of work. It's just if he has just been nailing his PATs, then I wouldn't feel bad. I'd be like, okay, I mean, we don't know, but with Kai Forbath, you know what you're going to get, and he's pretty solid. Now, the interesting twist to all of this is that the Bears have Cairo Santos, who the Rams had a couple years ago when Greg Zuerlein was injured. So he's their kicker now. They had on IR Eddie Pinheiro, or they had another kicker on IR. And then they had Kai Forbath on their practice squad. And the Rams, and the rules with practice squads are if a team can sign a player and then the team that the player's on, that practice squad, has to either put him on the active roster, and if not, then then the Rams can go ahead and get them, and that's what they did. So the Bears were carrying 3 kickers, kind of. So that's kind of crazy. So the Rams, so I don't know if he'll be active or ready to go for the game with all the COVID stuff, but, kicking's kicking. If he's ready to go, I'd say put him in, coach. Now, the Rams are the more desperate team here, and it kind of reminds me of the 49ers last week, and that's what 49er fans were telling me, is that the backs are against the wall. This is make or break. If they lose this game, they pretty much don't have a shot for the playoffs. So I feel like the Rams coming off that San Francisco game, they're pissed. They are working hard to clean up everything that they didn't get right. And I think they realize that this is a make or break game for them because they haven't beaten a good team all year, right? The best team they beat was the second half Bills. But, they beat the Cowboys, they beat Philly, Washington, New York. Not good teams. So and even though I feel the Bears are a playoff team, but I don't think they're an upper echelon team. This is a team you have to beat if you consider yourself one of the better teams in the NFC. Like I said, I feel like the Rams are the better team, but they actually have to show it. They have to come out and they have to win against a good team. Now the Bears, they've beaten only one good team, but they still beat them. And granted, it was because Tom Brady's brain fart, but they still beat a good team. So, That's what I'm looking for. This is what the Rams need to show us. They need to show us that they can win, because we're sitting here and we see them beating Washington and we're like, oh, look at all the sacks and the defense is amazing. It's like, but you played Washington, and we barely survived against the Giants. So you just got to win. And the Bears, they don't care. They're winning ugly. And all that matters are wins. Because right now you can look at the Bears and say, they're not the greatest team, but they're 5-1. They have a leg up on most teams in the NFC. They have a leg up on the Rams. The Rams need to beat them, so at least they're tied overall record. The Bears, all of their 5 wins come from a combined total of 20 points. So they're winning games. They find out how to win games. Even against Atlanta, they were getting blown out by Atlanta. Make the change from Trubisky to Foles, and he throws, 3 touchdowns or so, and they come back and they win that game. So the Bears just know how to win games. The point differential, the Bears plus 12, the Rams are plus 38. So you can have, the Rams are putting up points against these bad teams. They're even putting up points against the good teams. They're just... they just didn't win those 2 games. So the Rams just got to prove it to us this week. We know they have it in them. They just have to break through and do it, right? When I was watching the Bears game from last week against Carolina, just a little note for Rams fans, Pharoh Cooper is the return guy for Carolina. Don't know if anyone paid attention or knows where Pharoh Cooper is, but he's on the Panthers. Just in case, wanted to give you guys a little bit of that. Now, I think this game, everyone's saying it's going to be a close game. 2 years ago, 15-6. Last year, 17-7. So, if you go by what happened last year and 2 years ago, it's going to be a close game. If you go by what the Bears are doing this year, close game. But if there's anything about this Rams team, I just don't know what's going to happen. I want to sit here and say it's going to be a close game. It probably will. But who the heck even knows? It's 2020, right? So a lot of things I heard about coming into this game. The one thing that I heard the most was the Bears defense. It's like 2018 again, the Bears defense, it's the Bears defense, it's the Bears defense. What I'm about to say, I'm not saying the Bears defense is good. I think the Bears defense is legit. But the flip side of that coin is the Rams defense is actually better this year. And you wouldn't know it, but it is. They allow fewer points per game, fewer yards per game, fewer rushing yards per game, fewer passing yards per game. Right? Granted, they played some crap teams, but their defense is a top 5 defense in most metrics, right? So, yes, the Bears defense is good, but they have to go, and the Bears defense has to go against a Rams offense. The Rams defense has to go against the Bears offense. I think there's a bigger discrepancy between the Rams offense and the Bears defense than there is between the Bears offense and the Rams defense. Very confusing, I know, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So, the Bears do excel in other areas that the Rams don't. For example, they have the fewest TD touchdowns allowed this year, 13. just so that you know, their red zone defense is first in the NFL at allowing teams to score a touchdown at 36% of the time. So the Rams are, 20th in red zone offense, scoring touchdowns at 60% of the time. So something's going to give there. I know we are well aware of the Rams' ineffectiveness in the red zone. So this is a team you don't want to face if you're having red zone problems. So we'll see. The rubber's going to meet the road here. So let's just hope we're not dialing up any stupid screens 2 plays in a row in the red zone, or having a penalty push us back, any of that stuff. So our red zone offense has to be tight. Like in the Philly game, I felt like we were tight in the Philly game. We were tight in the Bills' second half. There's some teams, even in Washington, I felt like we were pretty tight in the red zone. So we have to be good in the red zone because their defense is damn good in the red zone, especially against Carolina. Teddy Bridgewater didn't have anywhere to go. Granted, it's Teddy Bridgewater and DJ Moore and nothing else. So, say what you will. The Bears on third down offensively ranked 27th and with a 36.3% succession or conversion rate. But they are 9th defensively, whereas the Rams are 6th. So the Rams are better on third down conversion as a defense. 35% conversion for the opposition, whereas the Bears are 46% conversion. But the Rams are second offensively in red zone or in third down conversion at 31%. So I think that the Bears' third down conversion rate on defense and the Rams' third down conversion rate on offense, that is beneficial for the Rams. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the Rams to rebound third down, Cooper Kupp. You guys know the deal. So those are some metrics for you right there. And the last little part of the team versus team comparison is penalties. And I remember I was at the Kansas City game, Monday night game a couple of years ago, the epic game. And part of my research going into that game was noting that Kansas City was one of the most penalized teams in the NFL, one of the least disciplined teams. And if you rewatch that game, penalty after penalty after penalty on Kansas City. So the Bears, they have the second most penalties in football. 45 penalties costing them 437 yards. Now, usually in the Jeff Fisher era, we were terrible with penalties. We were always shooting ourselves in the foot, Greg Robinson, and it was just, that's why we were held back so much. But this year, we have the 4th fewest penalties, 24 penalties for 187 yards. So essentially, 20 fewer penalties and 250 fewer penalty yards for the Rams. So look for that to see if it continues, if the Bears shoot themselves in the foot, and if the Rams just kind of continue to play somewhat clean football penalty-wise. Turnover differential, Bears +1, Rams -1. The Bears seem to be a little more opportunistic in their turnovers, but I'd also say the Rams are as well with what Darius Williams has done. Last year, the Bears scored their first touchdown off of an interception. It wasn't a pick six. Teddy Bridgewater throws the ball to Robbie Anderson, hits him in the hands. He doesn't catch it. He should have caught. That was on him. No, it wasn't Bridgewater. And it bounces off, and another guy gets it and sets up a touchdown for Chicago. So they're opportunistic, kind of like the Rams with the turnover. So expect it's pretty even right there. Now, I think for the Rams to get back on track is basically what they've been doing all season successfully, is being quick, being efficient, moving the pocket, using lots of motion, getting Jared Goff rolling out, just boom, hit some of the, we don't need him to throw over the top all the time. Just hit the small to medium routes and targets, and just keep it fresh. In the last game, didn't really see that a lot. He was standing in the pocket most of the time, and maybe that kind of threw off his rhythm. But he needs to make completions at the beginning of the game. He needs to get into a rhythm. But more than anything, the Rams need to be balanced. I'm screaming this from the mountaintops, but they need to run the ball. The Bears are a team we can run the ball against. Our offensive line needs to step up. Okay, our offensive line has been pretty good, but we're facing a really good front seven. Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Robert Quinn Medicine Man, former Ram great, Barkevious Mingo, Vaughters, Urban, Edwards. They have a lot of guys that they rotate in and out, and they bring a lot of pressure. So almost kind of like the 2018 team for the Bears. They're back. Last year, after Akeem Hicks was injured, it was really just Khalil Mack. So they get Robert Quinn. Hicks comes back. So I expect them to apply more pressure this time. So Goff is going to have to get the ball out quickly, just like he was doing against the Cowboys, just like he was doing against Philly. He just needs to continue doing. The Rams need to scheme according to that. Now, the Rams also need to run the ball more than they did last week. That is the Bears' Achilles heel in terms of defense. Let me fast forward here. So basically, I'm going to read this off. This is what the Bears have given up to opponents, rushers, since the beginning of the season. 138 yards, 75 yards, 144, 103, 106, 112. So they gave up over 100 yards in every game, and I think that will continue. Their run defense is not particularly great. Roquan Smith, he's a linebacker. That is his lowest grade on Pro Football Focus is run defense. And as long as they just commit, as long as we don't go and start the game with 3 passes and out, run the ball. Run the ball. This isn't a stalwart run-stopping team. They're not terrible, but the Rams have to establish the run. And Darrell Henderson, just feed him the ball. I don't know where Cam Akers is going to play in this game. And if the pass rush starts coming in, expect to see Malcolm Brown. Essentially, what Sean McVay is saying about the running game and why you don't see Darrell Henderson in there, Cam Akers in there at times, is when he mentions Malcolm Brown, what he is saying is that he needs an extra blocker. The pressure's coming in. That's what he is saying. So if you start seeing Malcolm Brown out there regularly, the pressure's happening. So I hope that doesn't happen. Now, Nick Foles. Good old Nick Foles. Former Ram Nick Foles. Nick Foles has won his last 2 games against the Rams, but really he's been beating the Rams ever since he was a Ram. Okay, we traded Sam Bradford for him in a 2nd-round pick. As a Ram in 2015, a starting quarterback, he was 4-7 with 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So, nothing new. The Nick Foles interception show. 2 games of that I remember watching and going, goddamn, Nick Foles cost us this game. One was against Green Bay at Lambeau, and Rodgers threw a couple interceptions. I think one maybe to Tremaine Johnson. So Aaron Rodgers wasn't looking sharp, but Nick Foles threw 4 interceptions and no touchdowns. And we barely lost that game too. Like, it was still somewhat winnable. I would say barely, like maybe 13, 14 points, but still. So 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Then later that season against Cincinnati, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So Nick Foles has just been, like I said, he's been beating us ever since he was a Ram. But also in 2017, 2018, when he was on Philly, he got 2 wins in those games. So the one game was when Carson Wentz went out, blew out his Achilles, rushing, I think, for the end zone. Foles comes in, wins, like they still win the game, but he doesn't throw any touchdowns or interceptions. Then the next year, when Wentz was injured previously in the season and Foles gets the start, Philly wins that game again. So in those 2 games, Foles was 30 for 41, no touchdowns, 1 interception. So Nick Foles as a starter against us, since he played for us, has not thrown any touchdowns. He has 1 interception, but he has 2 wins. Okay, so Nick Foles will throw an interception. This year, I think he's got 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's got 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions since he was a starting quarterback. After the Atlanta game, he had a couple touchdowns in that Atlanta game, but in the 3 games after that, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So it's definitely possible that Nick Foles is going to throw an interception, because I feel like everything I've just been saying about him is just interception. Okay? Nick Foles, so he's aggressive. He's a smart player, but he's aggressive, and he'll throw it. So the Rams need to make him pay for that. Also, Nick Foles is kind of like the Terminator. He just won't die. It seems like fourth quarter comebacks all the time. Nick Foles. So the Rams just need to go in and they need to take care of business. If they have a comfortable lead in the fourth quarter, you can't give up. Got to keep fighting. I mean, you would say that of any team, but like Nick Foles in particular is not a quitter, and he'll rally the team. And they're still rounding in the form, but he has them in a much better place. What I also noticed is a lot of tight end action. Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, but mainly Jimmy Graham. So Jimmy Graham, and I have this written down here, he has more targets, more yards, and more touchdowns than Tyler Higbee does this year. So I know Jimmy Graham has kind of been anonymous for a couple seasons since he had those breakout years with the Saints, but he seems to be Nick Foles' favorite weapon outside of Allen Robinson. Cole Kmet caught a touchdown. He was a tight end draft pick. He was picked again ahead of Bryson Hopkins. So they have a lot of tight ends on their team, and look for Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet and even one of the third tight ends to get a lot of run in this game and be big targets. So that's going to be a big matchup for our linebackers and safeties. Get into that in just a minute. So in terms of these matchups, Darius Williams versus a guy most Rams fans do not even know of, Darnell Mooney, rookie out of Tulane, I believe. Tulane or Tulsa, one of the T schools. He's a deep threat, 4.38 40 time. So the Bears are first in deep passes. So they need to, this is the guy that does the deep ball shot. So if Darius Williams is guarding him, then our matchup against him, and that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Now last week, the Niners didn't play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, so Darius Williams didn't play much. They put Troy Hill on the outside. So I don't know how this is going to factor in. You have Anthony Miller, you have Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, you have the tight ends. Tariq Cohen has kind of been anonymous this year, so I don't even know what's going on with Tariq Cohen. But anyways, Darius Williams versus Darnell Mooney, if they match up against each other. Of course, Jalen Ramsey versus Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is their best player on offense. He's got close to 500 receiving yards on the season. So he's the go-to. He's the bread and butter for Nick Foles. So I would just have Jalen Ramsey shut him down or do what he can do, because Jalen Ramsey has been lights out. So just if he can take Allen Robinson out of the game, that gives the Rams a much better chance, because their running game has not been great this year. Their offensive, mainly because of their offensive line. So their offensive line is not opening up holes. Their left tackle, their left guard, really not cutting it. So David Montgomery, typically a pretty good back, really hasn't had any running lanes. Rams fans can relate to this. So Havenstein versus Khalil Mack. It seems like Havenstein's always getting the best edge rusher from other teams. So he's faced Chase Young, I want to say DeMarcus Lawrence, and who are we talking about on the Bills? Anyways, maybe Eric Armstead last week. So Havenstein's he's got to manage this. He wasn't in this game last year. It was Bobby Evans, but he had a lot of help from running backs and tight ends chipping in against Khalil Mack and kind of neutralize Khalil Mack. So let's see what kind of game plan they can scheme up for him. But last year they could focus on Khalil Mack because Akeem Hicks and Robert Quinn were not there. So this could be some one-on-one time. So Havenstein's got to show up here. Like I said, Darrell Henderson, I hope they feed him the rock, or he and Cam Akers. Darrell Henderson's one of the best running backs in football this year, right? So, feed him. He's great. The other matchup I'm looking at is, like I said, going against the offensive line. It's going to be the combination of Justin Hollins, who got the most snaps at the edge rusher opposite of Leonard Floyd, the Hollins, Terrell Lewis, Ja'Kai Polite combination against their left tackle, Charles Leno Jr., right? So that'll be a fun one to watch. Then also their left guard, Alex Bars, who knows if Aaron Donald's going to be met. So if you have Donald and Hollins or Terrell Lewis just matched up there on that side, that could overwhelm big time, because it's really hard to double team. You have to have the center then coming in. So that would be a crack to attack. Then the Bears are 27th in rushing yards per game. So I think the Rams against the rush have been pretty good. I mean, we would say this is probably one of the weaker parts, but they're not bad. and the Bears are 27th in running. So just don't let the Bears get on a roll. Don't let them open up any lanes for Montgomery. But they'll probably just go soft zone all day, right? Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, the bottom line for me is Rams offense needs to be crisp. Play action, motion, move the pocket, bootleg, efficiency, completions, confidence, all of that. But run the ball, balance. I want to see the Rams get at least 30 carries in this game. 30 carries combined. Even adding in jet sweeps and stuff like that. 30 carries for me is the benchmark for success in this game. He needs to get the ball out quick. Then the Rams, the pass rush needs to show up. No sacks last week. Get to Foles. I don't care who it is, blitzing, whatever. Get to Foles. Win the line of scrimmage. Sam Sloman, Kyle Forbath, who knows? Score in the red when you're in the red zone. Convert to touchdowns. And then the last thing I did not mention was guarding Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, some of these guys going over the middle and stopping the run. This Micah Kiser and Kenny Young. Last week, I want to say they combined for 12 receptions, 10 first downs, a touchdown allowed, the middle of the field. So these guys need to step it up and they need to have a much better game in coverage. Now, if Micah Kiser can at least neutralize the running game, I'm cool with that. But I don't know if we're going to use Taylor Rapp or Terrell Burgess or whoever, or Natrez Patrick to spell, or Troy Reader. Troy Reader's not good in coverage. What am I talking about? To spell Kenny Young, because we can't get ripped. That's basically our defense. Our linebackers last week got ripped on defense, but at the same time, the offense should have scored more points. So this is going to be an interesting battle. Playing in the blue and the navy, or the royal and the soul pants at SoFi. Rams haven't really played particularly well at SoFi yet, so hopefully this is a game where they can break out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my thoughts. I think the Rams win this game. I don't have a score prediction for you yet. Tune in to follow me on Instagram. I will be pulling that out later this weekend, leading up to the game. And but I feel good about this game. The Rams are going to bring it. They have to, because if they lose this game, they're 4-3. They're going to be sitting behind in the NFC, and really, are they a contending team if they can't beat anyone above 500? Probably not. So, anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the show, gold star next to your name. Subscribe if you haven't, or if you haven't, watch another video. One last thing. I remember when the schedule came out and I looked at the schedule and I thought the Bears game is going to be tricky because they get Akeem Hicks back, they have Robert Quinn. So I knew that they weren't a terrible team anymore like they were last year. Not they weren't terrible, but you know what I mean. That you just can't look past them. And so the Rams need to show up. They need to look and sync. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Stay tuned for Saturday. Stay tuned for Monday night. And as always, go Rams.